Okay, so up next is Simon Saneback. He's a big-time man from Sweden. Simon is a senior partner at Wellstreet and an award-winning entrepreneur with substantial experience in the online industry in general and the e-commerce domain in particular. So Simon will be given his speech on subject the ever-changing landscape of disruptive technologies. So is technologies really disruptive? There's the question. Simon, please, we welcome you on stage.
Thank you.
Let's hear it.
There's no applause. No, I'm gonna go back. Are you sure? Should I do it? Okay then. Hey, good morning. I love the energy. Everyone's enjoying the sun. How are you guys doing? If there are no answers, I promise I'm gonna go back. They're not paying me enough. So, everyone is stressed right now. Really glad to be here in Estonia. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just making sure that everyone is awake. Of course, I know that we're in Latvia. Don't worry. So, I'll be talking about disruptive technologies, and I see that they have already clicked for the for the name of my presentation. So I'll click back because that's what I do. So if you think I'm talking about something that you like, feel free to tweet or write on Instagram. If you think you don't agree with me, just write me some shit online. That's my, my handler. So now to the most interesting part of my presentation, which is myself. No, still too early, right? My name is Simon Saneback. I'm an entrepreneur, so I basically started company since the age of 16, and I've lost count. I think over a dozen right now. Many failures. That's part of the journey. So I'm one of those entrepreneurs who turned investors. So I'm running a company called Wellstreet, based in Stockholm, which is one of the fastest growing and the most active tech investors in Sweden. So I'm basically here to meet a lot of nice startups and see what synergies we have with the Scandinavian industry. And that's basically a very short summary of myself. So usually I do a lot of those conferences and a lot of those presentations around the world. And you're called like, yeah, I'm the online entrepreneur, I'm the online expert or guru or whatever. That's a lot of bullcrap. There's no expert. You can't be really an expert on everything. And that's something that I've learned during those years. And the main reason to it is basically the fact that the industry is changing so fast. I mean, my background comes from e-commerce. So I've been working with e-commerce for the past 11, 12 years and running companies, everything from a basement to the Nasdaq stock exchange, and everything in between. And one thing that I've learned is stuff are happening and changing all the freaking time. Even at schools, I'm helping some of the universities and schools to teach people about digitalization and modern technologies. And we see, like, if we would keep the books from like 4 or 5 years ago, it would say like, social media strategy, stay on MySpace, that's the place to be. And obviously that's not the case. So everything is really changing quite rapidly. Now, one thing that I would like to warn you about is that even though this presentation is gonna give you like a holistic perspective of where we are in the tech industry and where we're heading, the reason to this is we have quite a mixed audience. I'm a nerd myself. I don't have my glasses right now, but I promise you I'm really, really nerdy when it comes to details. But I'm going to try to keep it more from a holistic perspective. One thing that we're seeing in our startups, and we have over 30 startups that we invested in the past 2 years, is that our everyday is getting simplified. Everything is becoming easier and easier and easier, and that is kind of pushing the innovation more and more forward. Now, looking at the so-called hype cycle, that is one report that is presented yearly by Gartner. You can see that there is a lot of new emergent technologies and there's a lot of new things that are coming up, and things are really, really changing quite fast. I'm not going to talk about amazing drones that are going to deliver pizzas to your home in a couple of years. I'm not going to talk about the virtual reality or augmented reality or all the different realities there are. You can see computing and edge computing, the cloud that is kind of doing a lot of that is actually boosting up this innovation that we have in the industry. At the same time, we're seeing the IoT, or the Internet of Things. There is billions and hundreds of billions of devices that are manufacturers that are connected to the internet every year, every month, and every week, and every single day. And that is kind of changing our lives. One of the things that we're trying to focus on in now when we're looking at new technologies and new emerging technologies is artificial intelligence. And like a wise man said, artificial intelligence is becoming kind of like the new electricity. And I'm quite allergic to people coming in and pitching to me and saying like, yeah, we are AI company. Because it became kind of like a buzzword, right? Everyone's talking about like AI. When you scratch below the surface, then you see like they're doing some kind of a freaking algorithm, or they like everything is like AI. Of all the AI companies we've probably invested in, I think there's one real company that's really doing AI. There's having really nerdy mathematicians that are really changing an industry that they're working in. So if someone comes in and says we're doing AI, or will use any of the other buzzwords, and they cannot support it really, they will be kicked out quite quickly. So be careful when you talk to me afterwards. I'm a nice guy, don't worry. So what we talk about instead is machine learning, basically. That's the stage where we are right now. So machine learning, where you kind of, it's the field of computing science of where you basically automize a certain type of process. And when I try to explain this to my partners, we do it very, very holistically and very simply in a way like you have unsupervised machine learning, and then you have the supervised one, and then you have the reinforced learning, basically. That's what you see, the reinforced learning. Is there a presentation here, or have we lost it? What's going on, guys? No problem. I always have a happy dance whenever there's a tech error, so do we have a music? So I'll do a happy dance instead. There's no music either. Good one, good one. I like you. I like you. This is a good one. You really thought I'm gonna dance. Maybe next time we fuck up the technology, I'm gonna dance. No worries. So basically, going back to what I was saying is like there's a difference between AI. We haven't really reached that level. I'm still laughing of the dance, but so the point where we've reached, there we go, is basically very simplified. You know where machine learning really is. And probably the last example, you've seen it where you're trying to teach robots to play chess or even more advanced games. And then you have like the supervised versions. You probably have used all those reCAPTCHAs where you're probably helping Google a little bit also, understanding where there are signs or where there are cars and bridges and so on. Now, the most important part of this is where we're seeing the strategic data acquisition, where you kind of have a great harmony between three main things, and that is the users, the data, and the product. And I'm quite allergic to when it comes to talking about big data and gathering a lot of data without using it. Here we're talking about, automizing processes, understanding the users in a better sense, and using it to optimize the product. So that's kind of a cycle that is completing itself. And then comes the million-dollar question, when should we use AI? Well, it's very, very simple. It's depending on if a process is manual, you would like to automate it, or if it's time intense and you would like to shorten that time. So there is a cycle for it. I can share the slide afterwards with you guys. So another part which is quite interesting, and I think that the Baltic countries have been much better than us Scandinavians at, which is basically the blockchain and the blockchain industry, where we're seeing a tremendous growth. I mean, the technology has been there-ish for a while, but we're seeing a lot of buzz around this because of the rise of the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and so on. So I think there is also a lot of misconception, especially at my company. My co-investors, they don't really get the difference between Bitcoin and blockchain. So you have to kind of start from the basics, right? It's like, it's different things. This is kind of the technology it's based on. And then it comes the question, so how could we use this in our business? And you just run through like, okay, so there's the centralized part, and then you would like to decentralize it to have less risk, and so on and so on. So I think blockchain is one of those industries which we will see a tremendous growth in in a couple of years. I think we Scandinavians we're not as good, unfortunately. We have a lot of influencers and people who talk about this on YouTube and so on, but haven't really seen a usage of this. So we're trying to lobby for this in the industry. I won't be here today because tomorrow we're having Sweden's largest blockchain event. So I'll be flying tomorrow morning. So, and I know that there will be a lot of blockchain companies here tomorrow as well. So I'm sad to miss that. But another part which we'd like to talk about is voice first. So you've probably heard about that term mobile first. I think we're heading towards voice first as a new term, where we're seeing some of the largest players that are basically fighting a huge battle of having those devices at your home and being the present microphone at your home, at your office, or whatever that is. So we kind of change this behavior. I don't know if any of you have seen the new presentation from Google a couple of days ago, where there's where Google Assistant actually makes a phone call and orders a time at a hair salon completely by itself. It's fascinating, and I did this presentation before that video was actually shown. Otherwise, I would love to include it, but I would advise you guys to see how far we've gone in this process. And then comes the creepy part, of course, where people say like, how the heck would we know that was a robot that was calling? So there are some ethical questions about all these kind of new emergent technologies as well, especially when, for example, you have self-driving cars and autonomous technologies that are emerging. But talking about voice for a second, which I think would become a huge part of the upcoming technology and where we're heading, you would see a lot of platforms, we see a lot of providers that are trying to support this, and there is a lot of, I think, a lot of startups, even here in the Baltics, that are really embracing this and working on using voice and this whole framework of kind of making it easier for the customer, using chatbots and so on to make it simple. One of the examples that we like is from former Uber people that have started Operator.com. It's quite a nice example of seeing where we're heading. Another example is IBM Watson, which has been here for quite a long time, which has now reached the stage where it can actually analyze what you're saying, and it's using voice mining to kind of understand what the person is basically saying in a phone call. So as an example, I would have a phone call and I would say, hey, my invoice is too high. And then we'd analyze kind of the voice, the tonality I'm having, and then it will basically forward my call to maybe a supervisor directly. It will say, this is an angry customer, we have to prioritize this call, and it will like gather all the data and all the information that is needed, and that will be handled quite quickly, rather quickly, compared to how it is today. So we're still in need of humans probably in this process where we are right now, but we're still using technology to kind of support the functions and the kind of the service that we have currently. Another part that is quite interesting to look at is mobile tech and the mobile technology in general, where it's still growing tremendously and quite rapidly. And we have the smartphones and the smart devices kind of emerged since only the last decade. So there is a huge change that is actually happening in our lives. And you see that Android and iOS, they are evolving rather quickly in this. And APIs are kind of binding in everything in this. I'm going to give you a few examples of mobile tech soon. Then I would like to talk about user interfaces and services. And UI will become even more important in the future. So UI and UX has been kind of like a nice to have in the past, especially for larger corporations, where they assume, like, of course, we're big, we're the market dominator. And they haven't really focused so much on giving a really smooth user experience or user interface to their customers. And then suddenly you see those startups coming from nowhere, and they kind of eating up their volumes and their margins. So that's also quite an interesting thing. I have one example. I don't know if Wish.com have been in Lithuania before. Do you have Wish.com here? Maybe. There's one person who knows. Yeah, thank you. Cujo, thank you very much. No, but Wish.com, I talked about it, having a background from e-commerce. I was talking about Wish.com, which basically connects consumers directly to factories in China. So you can order directly from a factory without any middlemen. And I talked about this for 5 years, and none of the Scandinavian retailers knew about this. And I knew that they were growing tremendously in Scandinavia, and they were eating a lot of volume, and that was changing the consumer behavior. And the major retailers was just sitting there, and I talk about conferences. How many people know about Wish.com? And they would be like, maybe, it sounds familiar. And then suddenly it became a thing now that the government had to step in a couple of months ago and like add a tariff on all packages coming in from China, because people kind of changed their consumer behavior completely in like 1-2 years. So moving on, the everyday automation, the smartness of technology is also coming into like everyday users. You see, like my mom is using like tools like if this then that, and it's like, if something happens, if the weather is raining, I would like to get an email. I was like, what the heck? So even this is going from the nerdy people, like from the techie people, to like everyday users. And you have so many tools that are actually connecting those, like Zapier as an example, where you can say, yeah, okay, whenever I have an attachment, please upload it here or do this whenever this happens, and so on. So this is rather interesting. And another fantastic example of this is, when it comes to the everyday automation, is of course all those software and all those tools that are helping and supporting everyday users and normal users, whatever you want to call them, probably your end users, to kind of connect different things through APIs. So suddenly you can have a tool from, I don't know, a standalone tool like Dropbox connected to your Gmail or to your Microsoft Exchange and so on, which is something that we've dreamt of like 5 or even 10 years ago. That was something out of the fantasy. But a very important part of this is obviously the handling of data. And you saw the example with Facebook. Someone said Facebook is too big to fail. A recent survey in Sweden said that one out of 3 Swedes are considering to leave Facebook. That's huge. And Facebook are having really tremendous challenges. The largest group that is actually growing on Facebook is people who are dead. So, and people are kind of leaving the platform. And that's very different in different regions. I know that in Lithuania, the brand is much stronger compared to how it is in Scandinavia. But also the pressure that we've seen from the Cambridge Analytica scandal and the whole GDPR application and the new laws are also pressuring those giant companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and so on to kind of adapt and become more user-friendly and consumer-friendly, which is making it obviously much difficult to sell and share data. And one of my favorite examples to talk about, being the e-commerce guy, is obviously Amazon, who are really, really good at using data. They understand their users. And these freaking guys are so good at understanding who you are. 1/3 of their sales is coming from their own recommendations. I don't know if you've heard about the creepy Target baby scandal once upon a time, where Target could actually predict that a girl was pregnant based on her searches, right? So what happened is that they sent like a targeting ad to her house, and the dad was so angry. He's like, no, my daughter is not pregnant. What the fuck are you guys doing? Oh, sorry, did I say the F-bomb? Fuck that. We'll bleep it at YouTube. No worries. I love this audience. Everyone is having sunglasses. No one will see it now, but everyone is having sunglasses and is just chilling. So I'll chill with you as well. Here we go. So with the Target scandal, it was really funny to kind of see how data is actually predicting and becoming better of understanding who we are than maybe our closest people or even our family is. So moving on, the camera guys hate me already. Moving on, talking about technology. This was supposed to be a joke to make sure that you guys are awake, so no photos, please. Blue screen of death. So basically, it's all about the cloud, and we're seeing it. I invest in mainly software companies and SaaS companies, and we're seeing that the cloud is a really main component out of this. And platforms platform as a service is actually something that is new. You know, back in time, everyone wanted to build their own shit and they wanted to build their own technology from scratch. That's not the case anymore. Right now, we're doing, the time to market is much more important, and actually being innovative and disruptive within your industry and becoming top of mind is much more important than actually owning the whole IP or the whole technology, right? So, and the cloud is one main component out of this. And I think a personal prediction is that blockchain and decentralization will become another part of this in the near future. Let's talk a handful of years from now. 3 to 5 years is my personal prediction, but let's see. So, last but not least, let's talk about the state of mobile, which is dear to heart for many people because that's where we're seeing the growth. So, looking at where we spend, time with our devices, mobile is obviously, the main component of this, and that's the device that we're spending most of our time with. And we're seeing crazy numbers from Google and from various independent organizations that are showing how many times we actually interact with our phones on a daily basis. On average, hundreds of times that we actually interacting with your phones. And this is kind of changing our behavior as human beings, not as consumers anymore. This is becoming an integrated part of our lives. And from a commercial point of view, from a financial point of view, what is happening that the app economy by itself, and these are one-year-old numbers, is worth $6 trillion in 5 years from now. So these are tremendous numbers, and I think that they are underestimating the value and the actual potential of mobile. But deep diving a little bit into it, we actually see that users are actually spending most of their time within their top 10 apps. So, and that depends on what kind of person you are and what preferences and what tools do you use and what apps do you use. But these figures are based on a survey from Comscore, and that is showing even when we're looking at millennials, a huge part of their day is based on their mobiles. There's so much need and dependency on this. Now, so what I've said is, so mobile is important, but what is happening with the mobile technology? It's basically becoming a platform at platforms. And with that, I mean, what we're looking at, extensions. You see like calendars is integrated with other parts. You're seeing iMessage is basically opening up APIs. You can add some more tools. You can add interactions. You see Facebook Messenger as an example of an integration of becoming a platform of various platforms. And another example of this is basically I'm an Uber user, but I have stopped using the Uber app because now I'm booking directly from Google Maps, the Google Maps app actually, because it's basically integrated with Uber and with all the other, with Cabify or whatever you have in a certain local market. So certainly this is becoming, so the consumer behavior is also changing and evolving. Let's call it evolving because actions are embedded now everywhere. So right from the Google Maps app or from the Apple Maps, I can actually order an Uber. So I don't have the necessity of using the local app, and everything is becoming more simplified. So what is happening, or what we believe is happening, is that apps are going to be split into actions. Why? Because the brand loyalty is less important than solving a problem. So instead of me going into a certain app and ordering flowers or ordering lunch or whatever, one of our companies called Simply Day, if you're, they're beta testing, it's a calendar app basically. And they're beta testing in downtown Manhattan in New York, where you can see the most busy people, they basically see their schedules and they try like, okay, would you like to have lunch right now? Or would like to book an Uber? And that's just one call to action directly from the lock screen. And we see tremendous results of this. So people are able, or they're willing to change their behavior because it's more comfortable, it's more convenient for them. So that means that mobile is no longer just a device, it's actually a behavior. And it's very personal. It's actually the most customer-centric channel that we've ever seen before. And this dependency that we have on our mobiles. I mean, if I would lose my phone right now, hopefully the guys in backstage still keep my mobile safe now. I have everything in there, right? I would be completely stupid. I don't look at maps anymore. I was just like, I'm going from this location to here, and I would follow it. I have my emails, I have my calendar, my music. Everything is gathered in this place. But this dependency is also causing some problems where we have people who want some digital detox and whatever. And you're so depending on your mobile that this have caused something that is called, and this is real. This is not one of my fancy jokes or phony jokes. It's called nomophobia. We're getting afraid of losing our mobile or losing connection or losing, source of network. And this dependency is making us so hooked. It's like drugs. Yeah, someone is laughing. Finally, it took an hour. Oh my God. And going back in time to the mid-60s, we call this the information era. You're just watching a TV channel or you're listening to a single radio channel and it will tell you Hitler was a good guy or whatever. And you had to believe this because you have no sort of way to double check the facts, right? What happened in the mid-80s is we started connecting to each other. We called it the connection era. So you started interacting with people. That was kind of the rise of internet and whatever we had before that. But the era we are in right now, which started somewhere around 2005, 2008, is what we call the protection era. I decide who I want to follow on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. I decide how my newsfeed should look like. I decide, whatever. So I can create my own reality, my own kind of community, I define who my friends are, which people that inspire me, and so on. And from a commercial perspective, this made consumers become dictators. So we are wanting and wanting and wanting. And to be honest, you only have a few seconds to make a user interested. So make sure that you use machine learning to deliver personal user-based information based on their location, their preferences, and so on. So you have different types of mobile behaviors. You have the see now, buy later, the see now, buy now, and see before, buy now. And of course, with all this technology and all this diversity that we're seeing, synchronizing and making this very, very user-friendly is an important part of it, where I can just open something on my iPhone and I can continue surfing on my laptop. Or if I'm searching on hotels.com as an example for a hotel, on my PC, I can find it directly in my mobile or my tablet and so on. So this is an important part of it. And APIs we will hear more and more about this because this will become essential for building these things and connecting them together. And the final point I would like to talk about is mobile focus. So looking where we are right now in 2018, the must-haves and the should-haves are quite well known for everyone, even the ones who are not developers. But we are building now for AI, and we're planning for maybe AR and voice and so on. Now, if we pause this for a second and we move on 2 years ahead, so for 2020, my belief is that what we are planning for right now would be like voice and AI as an example, and having APIs and synchronizing the data would become an essential part. That will become a must-have instead. So the companies who are following this journey and jumping aboard the train, they will be the winners. Otherwise, I think there will be some tremendous issues for those businesses. And as I mentioned before a couple of times, the industry is moving so rapidly, but the consumer behavior or the user behavior is changing with it. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you're adapting to whatever the industry is heading. And my final slide is how to keep up with tech. So make sure to look at what is relevant for your users, for your customers, because that's what matters. For example, it doesn't make sense for example, Uber to use AR, at least what I can think of. So these are this is the landscape from at least my personal point of view. Maybe some agree, maybe some don't. But that's at least my point of view, and I think that was helpful for you guys. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.